All right, we are called to order. Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Welcome to August. And let's start with any public comments or general announcements.
Reed Willis is with us this morning. Reed, you have anything you'd like to share? You can enter in the chat, comment, or raise your hand.
Okay, anything from the commissioners?
Not on the agenda is the stormwater facility. It's just a heads up that it's well into construction up in the field. If you want to go check it out. You can go up Penny Lane, our driveway, and take a peek. I have pictures if people are interested in what it looked like when it began.
Thank you. Any other comments or announcements? Okay, great, then let's go with the minutes. You've got a nice big new computer too.
I do.
Wow, that is nice.
Mine is very small,
It is.
but
I like to have a number pad.
He was like exactly the same as mine.
oh yeah, look at that. Brand new
Yeah, I was like 8 years old.
one.
10 years
I
old.
left out that I didn't bring my laptop.
Yeah.
Like that.
Hold
Huh?
on. Okay.
I mean, I was here on time. Let's not ask too much.
I don't have anything that's here.
Dave, I did not have any comments on the
Minutes.
minutes except for one small point, which is if you scroll down, it says, I think it says Reed said that this was in the Marcotte debrief, there it is. Reed noted the interior forest was,
Yeah, it was not.
Did I
me,
miss
don't
the
think.
tribute
it was
that?
me,
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, I know we're very similar. The glasses and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, the AI
Yeah, I thought we were the same.
couldn't quite.
no, that was me.
That was.
I know, I thought that too. I read it. I was like, wow. No, I don't think I said that. I remember that, but I don't think I said it.
And just a small thing on number 6, last sentence. It just park users instead of uses. It's just small. I think people will get what that means.
That was what I was trying to remember. I was like, there's some word.
Okay, sorry, Laura, where was that? That was number 6.
Last
Last sentence.
Mhm.
Commission agreed to, I think, but users.
Yeah.
Great. That, is that gonna go up? You have a time frame for when that?
I do not have a time frame.
Okay.
I do not have time frame.
Fair enough. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes as noted or corrected?
So moved.
Eric. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Reed seconds. All in favor of approving the minutes as corrected and amended? Aye. Great. All here today, no delay on the video. So, we do have a rather full agenda. So we will kick off actually with a slight change of order, and start with the subcommittee update on volunteering.
Real quick, before we jump into that, who motioned and seconded for the minutes?
Eric motioned Reed, or seconded.
Thank you.
Could we pull up the Word doc?
Yes. Sorry, the computer is running with a 30-second lag for this morning. Everything. Clear screen. So if you want to start explaining,
Yeah.
feel free to jump in.
So we drafted this memo. We did have a meeting with Aaron, the assistant town manager. To talk through where the draft volunteer policy is at, we heard some thoughts from her from the perspective of her office. She did reiterate many times that the policy isn't designed to constrain volunteering. I think she heard us that that is a real concern that we have. I think she was surprised to hear that. Would you say that that's fair?
I mean, I don't see how she could be surprised. I mean, I feel like that's been raised before,
Yeah,
so I don't, I guess
I would say she knew that there was a feeling of constraint on conservation volunteering. Historically, and I think she felt that the current draft version alleviated those constraints, and I shared in our meeting that I disagreed, that I felt like we were making progress, but we still had a lot to go.
We had a discussion about the difference between Article 4 and Article 5. We don't meet the requirements for Article 4 currently, but we still, the subcommittee, feel that that's the most efficient path forward. David expressed that from his position, he doesn't see that much of a difference between Article 4 and Article 5. We talked about it afterwards, and we really do see, the three of us, some advantages, which we've put in here. And then we included a table of what we would need to do to meet the threshold that's outlined. We did ask if we could see an updated draft of the policy that the town manager's office is working on ahead of the select board meeting, and we were told no. So we do have a note in here.
Is that because they're still working on the draft?
Yes.
However,
Well, my question was whether we could see it before it went to the select board. The answer is no.
yeah.
Well, I can clarify that it's the position of the town manager's office is that this is not going to be done before the date at which materials go out to the select board. And then will be posted on the agenda for everyone to see in advance of the select board meeting. So the question was, will there be a period of time in which the WCC can see this before everyone is in? And that was where the answer was no.
Yeah, I guess in order to try to comment, the point of the question was, can the WCC have time to see the draft so we can comment on it prior to it going to the select board? Because right now, the only draft that we have is the draft that went to the select board last time, and we know that it's changed since.
we didn't really get a sense of like where the change was, that was not, so we
Yeah.
might be commenting on something that is no longer relevant. I think this is our concern, like, we're always gonna be trying to catch up to the latest draft.
And correct me if this is wrong, but did she not say if it had been several years ago, I would have said yes?
Yeah, that was sort of like some context she gave, was that she felt differently now than years ago in terms of sharing materials with certain parts of town government.
Which I think is a different answer than it's not ready yet.
Well, I had a very different take on that, which was simply that Erin was saying earlier in her career with less experience, if someone said, hey, can I see like the draft in progress? She would have said, yeah, of course. She wants to, work with everyone and make everyone happy. At her present point in her career, she has the experience to understand that if she answers some of those requests with yes, that can open up challenges, because now you've let one group of people see it early when not everyone else has. That's what she was saying, from my understanding. So I think it's a question from her perspective as assistant town manager, knowing that there's a conservation commission, there's a library, there's a rec department, all these places around town that have volunteers, there's all, public citizens, anyone who might have an interest in what the policy has to say. She wants to be very careful about distributing the information equally to everyone at the same time. So
Mhm.
that's my understanding of what she was trying to say.
Why isn't there a process then to share it with all of
That
the
that was my
committees? I mean, the library, the trustees, the et cetera, et cetera.
Right, all you have to do is plan back 2 weeks in your timeline, right, or push it out 2 weeks in your timeline
Yeah.
and say, and now we've given it to these people for comment, and then everything goes to the select.
Yeah.
There are examples aplenty of, they come, applicants come to us before it goes to the DRB, before the DRB signs off on it, right? I mean,
Certainly.
seems reasonable.
To that point, we have a request in here that we'd be allowed to comment on it before the select board vote. I put language in there that I was like frankly surprised and disappointed that the answer was no, when suggested that we perhaps take it out. Reed was like, I think we should let the group decide, so that like those, I mean, everything that's in there, all the phrasing is up for debate, but just to call out in particular those 2 words. And then to the same point, right, to our knowledge, no volunteers, past or current, have had feedback solicited from them, and the 3 of us felt very strongly that also should happen. And that like this, it should be a public process, the way that Dave just, at least commenting, like the giving of feedback. The select board should have all of the information from all of the affected or impacted individuals to make a good decision.
I would say. In the, we're on page 3 at the bottom, it looks like the bottom of page 3, we request the select board grant the WCC and all other affected committees or. Town boards. With oversight of volunteer responsibilities,
Sure.
something to that extent. So that it's clear, it's not just going to us.
Yeah, I agree that would be. We weren't intentionally excluding other groups.
Yeah.
From that, but that's the spirit of it, was that it should be an open development process before the select board. Is asked to make a decision.
Yeah. I don't think you need to have we are surprised and disappointed by this response.
We can take it out. That was Len's reaction as well.
I think you can just say. We request the opportunity to comment before it goes to the select board. The fact that we're writing a memo at all, I think makes it clear that there's a high level of interest and engagement that needs to be recognized.
Yeah.
Okay, so we strike the language, we're surprised and disappointed, and just start with, we request that the select board grant the WCC. And all other governing bodies the opportunity to comment. This governing bodies include boards and.
Yeah, with
Departments.
oversight on volunteers, like the energy committee doesn't, I don't think it can volunteers.
Although. Although they have had. Activity, they've had people who wanted to allow their EVs to be test driven under their supervision and were told no. Under similar risk policies, so I don't know if they may actually wish they had programming, but they can't right now, so. I would just say all governing bodies, the opportunity to comment. I don't want to judge who would and wouldn't be impacted by it.
And all other governing bodies, committees, groups, governing bodies.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't address
Other
the
group-
volunteer input that you were talking about, this, like. Stakeholders would be the broadest term, I think, that would include. Town bodies, but also. The public has some. Ability to comment at the select board.
What about in all
Wait.
other impacted groups? Go ahead, Eric, you're the wordsmith.
Can I propose something?
Yes, please.
To start us straight, I suggest we strike out the sentence. With, we were told by the assistant town manager, that could be. Relationship damaging and polarizing, for that individual, so I would say. I would propose we replace that. In the "we are surprised and disappointed" sentence with something like. We learned that town committees with programs utilizing volunteers would not be granted the opportunity to provide feedback on race draft of policy. Period. We request.
Hang on,
Mhm.
committees.
Should buy your lap.
Ooh. I wouldn't have typed that fast anyway. Man, we request the town committees to manage, no, we learned that town committees who manage volunteers. Were not,
Which I think should just do voice report.
no. Provided with the opportunity. To review the draft policy.
Right draft.
Yeah, the recent draft of the policy is what I was with, that was stated.
Recent. Well, I think, yeah, because distinguishing between this and the previous draft policy.
I would add prior to it going to the select board. I don't even, it's it's an interesting point, is that I don't know that the select board grants us that opportunity, it's like, it's just a matter of like the process before it goes to the select. board.
But they can say, we'd like the committee's feedback or we
Or we won't vote on this until.
Yeah.
And this is a letter to the select. board, right?
Yeah. Right, okay, and then I'm striking. All the way to the bolded we,
Yep.
and then am I capitalizing that we,
Yep. And I
okay,
think you all were talking about. Changing, this is where I was not listening to what you were saying, we were changing that to say something like, we request that the select board grant.
the WCC and all other groups in town that manage volunteers an opportunity to review the updated draft.
Yeah.
Okay, manage.
Works for me.
I'd like to just jump in real quick. I think Reed's language about stakeholders is probably more appropriate here. I just noting that I think the language you're getting into is kind of walking a little bit of a fine line in terms of what the WCC's charge actually
Like,
is.
do we actually manage?
Yeah, the
volunteers?
WC does not manage volunteers and the WCC
Mhm.
does not set policy for the town. You know, your advisory body on all matters that relate to conservation.
Yeah, we advise on conservation programming, including
Yeah.
volunteer programs, but.
So it's,
But we can't, I don't, it's not outside our charge to provide feedback to the select board on a policy.
No, it's just
no,
to manage.
not if that
volunteers.
policy impacts your charge, but I think you need to be a little careful about how you word this here.
So wait, what are we request the select board grant the WCC and all other groups in town that manage volunteers an opportunity to review the updated draft policy and provide input before the
It's just
policy
like-
is done.
All other stakeholders.
Well. Then you're talking about like a town-wide comment process,
Mhm.
which I don't think the select board really understands or wants to be involved in. But I like the idea of sending it to the committees, so that, to me, like, that's the key word. I think stakeholders is too broad. If you could, if maybe not oversight with volunteers, but works with volunteers or coordinates
How about
volunteers.
Involved in volunteer
We
programming.
request the select board grant the WCC and all other similar committees an opportunity.
Sure. I don't think it needs to be perfect.
Mhm.
The intent is, I think, the main point.
Yeah.
Okay. And then in the next paragraph, we were saying, we also really think you should solicit feedback from volunteers.
Okay, so it's in the next.
Yeah,
Yeah, so stakeholders.
which like, I think to your point, stakeholders could be the entire town, whereas if we're. Right, like that's. Could be interpreted as us asking for a public comment period. Which I don't think we're doing. But we are saying, if the intent is not to constrain volunteerism, then,
You have to talk to volunteers.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if folks have questions, want other wordsmith people. I'm happy to have people track change and I can incorporate things after the meeting. I think our goal would be to obviously to get it to the select board before they look at the volunteer policy again.
Mhm.
If we're unable to finish our changes during this meeting, then our only option, I think, is a vote via email or a vote, to send it pending the following changes by this person.
Sure.
Are those not accurate?
I was fine with it, if the committee's fine with it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I kind of would leave it to you unless we want a vote, in which case, a vote could, be more significant.
Yeah, I think we should have a vote, even if you want the committee to make any final polishing edits based on our conversation and transmit it.
Okay, well, do we want to do that now based on the edits and comments that we just discussed?
Or do people have other things they want me to change? Eric is doing the wordsmithing thing right now, I think.
I think. One of the changes that we've made are fine.
I do want to say, David, I know you have a different opinion. I think that's okay. The select board should hear all the different opinions and then decide what they think is the right path for the town. And I think we've had a significant amount of discussion around it, so I think there's good understanding all around on the different aspects.
Of course, yeah, I mean, you should absolutely have your opportunity to say what do you think. If I could offer one thing just for your consideration, I think to Eric's previous point about kind of relationship maintenance and not some person. I do think that this last sentence, it is our position the best policies are created through openness, transparency, and collaboration. That's an excellent sentiment. I think in the context of this letter, to me, when I read that, that comes off as critical of one person.
We don't need, I mean, I think we've struck every reference to that person.
That's fine. I'm just offering this comment for your consideration. I think the reading between the lines that comes off as critical is to one person, implying that those three things have not been present in the process in any degree. And while I think from your perspective, you don't feel like you've had the degree of openness and collaboration that you like, I do not think it's accurate to imply that there's been no openness, transparency, and collaboration of any kind.
I'm gonna push back and say that I'm not implying that there hasn't been openness, transparency, and collaboration, but if the select board were to vote without gathering feedback from current and past volunteers, that would be the case. Like, that sentence is not about,
So is there a way where you write it then so that it's clear that it's just a town leadership? Just a reminder that this is how we end up with a really good product by taking this approach.
I feel like, and we encourage community engagement, and the creation of this specific policy could get changed too, and we encourage soliciting volunteer.
Well, the previous sentences were urging the commission to get the feedback, and I think that's the right sentiment. And then really that following sentence is about reiterating that, and you could say, doing so would be consistent with development of the best policies being created through openness, transparency, collaboration, and feedback from affected stakeholders.
I mean, I just need to point out that there has been already one round of open, transparent public feedback. This went to the select board. There was a public comment period. It was said, we'd like more time. Erin went back, she took all the feedback, she's making a revised version. So that is what the point that I'm trying to make here. And you, in this case, are asking for more, and that's totally fine.
I think we're asking for feedback to be solicited from specific groups that would be impacted, which hasn't happened.
I think it's a matter of degree. I mean, the way that policies work in municipal government is often through public comment period.
Sure,
It's the
and the
same way
Forest
that-
Service gets litigated more than any other federal agency when all they do is post something in the newspaper and have a public comment period, right? Like, like, there's tons and tons and tons of papers about and research about what terrible outreach that is. Just because it's the norm doesn't mean it's great collaboration, right? Like,
Kim, that's fine, but this isn't the US Forest Service.
no, but the point remains that like, if you do outreach that way, it doesn't facilitate great engagement. And here's a perfect example, right? Like, this is how the outreach happened and it didn't facilitate great engagement.
It's also like, yeah, for the town manager to take those edits and, you know, or to take comments and solicit feedback at one point and then make edits and then not review those edits with anyone and just send them back to the select board, and it's like, okay, well, we took the comments, we made these revisions. Like, okay, at best, you might see a track changes. I think the point is that like, if you really want this to be
Exactly.
effective, just share your edits with the affected
Yeah,
communities.
and I think that's a reasonable point.
Yeah.
I
But that's-
merely offered,
What? That's the paragraph above.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I'm gonna end my comment. I just offered that for your consideration.
yeah,
I'll just.
as a way it could be interpreted, yeah.
I'll say from trying to manage a process like this, I guess I missed the fact that this had already been circulated for public feedback. I do think it's a little bit much to ask that, the town put a second draft out for public feedback. It does stand to reason that it would make sense to me to send it out to some of the committees that are expressing significant interest in the issue. But,
You don't think the volunteers should have a chance to provide feedback if they feel constrained?
well, presumably they did on the first round of public when they were soliciting public comment, right?
It was on a select board agenda, but there was no solicitation to anybody. It was just,
It wasn't like put on the Observer or whatever.
no, it was just showed up on an agenda for the select board.
Oh,
So like, not many people were aware that
I
it was
see.
being discussed,
Alright.
yeah.
sorry.
I mean, I will just say broadly speaking, and this is not meant as a slight against any individual staff or whatever, but like the town has a really sort of unfortunate habit of thinking that if they just put it on the agenda and it
That's
goes
like
to the
what-
select board,
That's public warning.
that's
Yeah.
public
Right,
warning.
so, like,
That's
that's
really not.
technically the letter of the law, but it's bad public engagement.
And it's the reason why we're in the mess we are with the library, frankly. Is that like, you know. We didn't, you know. It was not true gathering of feedback. It was just these public meetings that were noticed and like that one clearly wasn't enough. So I think here we're just saying, please be a little bit more considerate about gathering and harvesting actual feedback.
I don't mind striking that sentence, but I stand by the sentiment that like, it's not what happened in this instance.
Yeah,
I will say that you're closest to this and I'm not gonna,
Oh,
no, it's and I
no.
think it's, the word that keeps coming to me is being proactive about it rather than just warning it on a select board meeting. So I don't know if there's a way to include, to replace it with that and say that, you know,
Proactive
yeah,
openness.
or like, no, or like to say, it's our position. We're asking for more proactiveness to create thorough openness, transparent collaboration, I don't know. And maybe we need to just, think about that sentence more or decide to.
so we do need
Yeah.
to move on.
Yeah.
We did not give this topic a 20-minute airing in the agenda, so but we did in real life. So I suggest that we move this to an email vote if you guys want to keep working on it. If you meet later this afternoon, you're like, nope, we like the way it is. Then we can finish it there.
Well, I wanna make sure everyone feels good about that final sentence. Is there a tweak that we can make and then vote that people feel good about? Because I think right now, even if we worked on it offline, I don't have a sense of what the rest of the committee would feel good about in that sentence.
No, it seems like, is there anything outside that sentence that anybody still has
I mean,
comments on?
if you really just wanted to sort of take it down a notch, all you have to do is say, as a general matter, the best policies are created through openness,
Yeah,
transparency.
I think taking it down a notch is a good idea.
But as a general matter,
Yeah,
how about that?
And we encourage more community engagement in the creation of this specific policy.
Sure.
And for additional, yeah,
Yeah,
Mhm.
beyond what's already been done, I
Yeah.
guess, to acknowledge what's already been done.
additional,
Sure. I like that change to it. I'd like to. Move that we approve this memo for. To the select board as amended.
okay. Thank you, Reed. Do we have a second?
second,
Laura seconds. All in favor of approving the memo as discussed and amended through Kim's iPhone? Aye.
So one quick note on
Kim, did you
protocol.
vote in favor?
Yeah, sorry. yeah.
Thank you.
One quick note on protocol, when the memo is complete, please send it to me. I'll transmit
Yeah.
it to.
Thanks,
I
Dave.
can know those stuff.
Thank you.
And
And thank you so much for getting that meeting there, and I know that time with the manager's office is tough right now, so
yeah,
I really appreciate that.
how
Wait,
can
was
we
this still
circulate?
Eric Reed again, or was it Reed Eric?
Read
Read,
Laura,
Laura.
move and second him.
Someone figure out a way to get it to the whole committee as a final draft too, if we could, because
Yeah,
we
I
did
can do
not.
that right now.
Okay, great. Then we shall move to the next topic, which is an update from Dave, our conservation planner. Great.
Okay, all right, so I think I just have a couple of trail updates, and I'll be quick so we can get back on,
Well, we actually did give it 20 minutes. So we're
already
at that.
done by 7:50. Okay, so. Allen Brook Boardwalk Repair Project is moving forward,
All right.
fingers crossed and biting my tongue and all that stuff. We have a pre-construction meeting with the stream stabilization consultant next week. With the plan to begin that work the last week of August and on sort of a 3 to 3.5 week timetable. And then at the end of September would be when we coordinate the handoff or mid to end of September with the trail builder to install the piles. And that'll be the last piece of the in-stream work. So we'll be clear of that window, and then we'll have more flexibility timing wise to redeck the project. Or redeck the bridge to complete the project. There's still a few things that need to be sorted out. I'll be going to, we're gonna speak with the select board just about closing the funding gap. And some paperwork and things like that that need to be coordinated. We also have the Intervale Conservation Nurseries gonna be coming on September 22nd to do the planting for the project.
Cool.
And they're donating those services through a grant they have from the Lake Champlain Basin Program, which is great. So we have a chance of seeing this thing complete in 2026, which is very, very exciting.
When is the construction gonna be taking place? What times of the day?
There are limits on that are based on all the permitting. I think it's Mondays through Saturdays. You're not allowed to do construction on Sunday, I think, for some reason. And I
That
don't,
sounds really old and Yankee.
yeah, it does, yeah.
I bet it's a sound thing.
And it may be like 7 AM or something like that. So I'm not sure what the.
I'm just asking because of the kids and the fact that that will be the first week of school that the construction starts, but I'm not sure if that, how, I don't wanna throw any wrenches or anything.
This year.
Yeah,
I think they'll be really
it's
happy to
gonna
have
get-
their boardwalk back open to get to school.
yeah, I think so too, I don't know when soccer
can get there.
practices and all that stuff
Mhm.
take place, but it sounds like,
Yeah, the sooner the better, hopefully,
Yep.
it'll be as minimally impactful as possible. Certainly be coordinating with the rec department and to try to minimize disruptions.
Is that multi-use path wide enough to fit all of those tracks? Like, are they gonna be more or less using the multi-use path as the?
Yeah, I mean, that was a condition in the
Mhm.
request for proposals that, you know, the consultant will need to choose the appropriate equipment to move.
There's
everything
some
that they'll
clearing,
need
right?
Via, what's that?
Didn't you say there would be like minimal, some minimal?
Yeah, for to clear the access path, so there'll some trees and snags, some
Yeah.
small trees and snags that'll need to come down immediately adjacent, but to get access to the site, they'll have to use the multi-use rec paths.
Very cool.
Next update is that the Schmoker Trail Boardwalk, which is if you've been out there, which doesn't seem like a lot of people have been out there recently, it's in fair disrepair. This is the boardwalk that's adjacent to Oak Hill Road across from Oak Pond. That is being replaced next week with assistant from Winooski Valley Parks District and Isaac, our trail steward, are working on that project. So
Fantastic.
that's a capital expenditure, but it looks like it's probably gonna come in under what was estimated by that assessment we had done 5 or 6 years ago. So that's great. And Isaac is also pretty much finished elevating the boardwalk structure out on Allenbrook Nature Trail. So it's open again, people can cross. And the beaver is not active, so the water levels come way down, which facilitate the work, but. You know,
It will come back up.
that site will be flooded and have fluctuating water levels for, you know, forever, so. It should be much better equipped to handle an increase in water level for the next round. So some big things, so the last 10 minutes of the update here, I shared on the agenda a assessment that was done by Timber and Stone out at Mud Pond Conservation Area regarding the boardwalks that were closed last fall. That includes the long 800-foot boardwalk that is kind of a central component of the circumferential trail that was put in back in circa 2011 by VYCC. And we used Timber and Stone because Josh from Timber and Stone actually was the one who went out and scouted that route. Although he didn't build the boardwalk, but he's kind of designed that route. So it's great to get him back out there a decade later, get his fresh experience. And the other boardwalk that was in consideration for discussion was the viewing platform on the west side, which is also closed because it's in bad disrepair. So I won't go through this in detail. It's relatively to the point in terms of the assessment work that they did on those two structures, looking at potential alternatives and what it's going to cost to replace them. There's description in here that you can all read, or maybe some of you have poked through, the existing conditions and then their primary recommendations. So I'll summarize that what it comes down to are, see, I wonder if there's a good picture.
Dave, before you,
Yep.
so go, I would say that I was really looking for a top-down map.
Yes.
I was like
Yeah.
really struggling with like keeping track of like boardwalk 1 and 2 and
Yeah.
east or west. It was just like, I really think that like that, if they could add that to their proposal or suggestion, that would be really helpful for understanding the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that their work, their contract is concluded, so that's report, but what I can do is I can share a top-down map of the trail closures. So I have that.
Thank you. We currently have no attendees.
Hello. Boarded. Oh, Zoom. Okay, so here is the two closed structures. So this is the top down, this is the little side spur trail with viewing platform on the west side, and this is the long 800-foot boardwalk. This actually also includes the portion of the trail that goes out to the boardwalk. Boardwalk starts around here. You can faintly see the change in vegetation. This is all black ash,
Marsh.
red maple swamp, transitioning into more of like a bog mat community out here. So the primary recommendations split into two camps in terms of what do you do about the big long one, and then what do you do about the little short one? The little short one is kind of more palatable and I think more exciting. So Josh's proposal is do not repair that boardwalk. For a couple of reasons. One, the main one being that it crosses the Bass Trail. And that's a perennial issue in terms of restoring any kind of access. Even now, the boardwalk starts after the Bass Trail, and so there's this, you know, having a permanent structure in the Bass Trail is not possible, so you can have a temporary structure, but it's just kind of messy.
Wait, so what, I'm confused, what currently happens now before winter?
Nothing, because there's just a series of low planks that are kind of stuck into the mud that people have been using to
And
cross.
they groom over
And they grow
Yeah.
over it when conditions are frozen. So Josh's recommendation is instead of restoring that, we should move it to the east side, where the main trail is, where the majority of people are, and create a boardwalk from scratch. That's a pile boardwalk that goes out here to a short viewing platform. Now, we do two things. One, it would get rid of this perennial issue. Two, and create a viewing platform that's more accessible to the community and probably a better spot for it. And two, it would mitigate the issue of this area right here being an attractive nuisance. Because people are always going out here where the primary destination is for the lookout area. They're also walking out onto the bog mat. And there's developed a social trail that has kind of degraded the mat in that area. And it's impossible to keep people off. So it would mitigate that attractive nuisance problem, providing an actual path where people could go out and see more clearly the bog and interact with it. So it'd be a better place for a long-term investment if we're looking at replacing that structure with a more permanent alternative.
I don't remember when we did it, but we had a site visit at Mud Pond Conservation Area. And I remember going to the viewing platform and being like, okay, but without significant clearing, I can't actually see much from the viewing
Right.
platform. And like wanting
Yeah.
to go out
Right.
further.
It is a little limited in terms of what you could see from that platform. So to me, that's a pretty exciting project idea. We'd of course need to get the wetlands program involved, apply probably for an individual permit. But we're all at it now.
The permit.
and the long-term maintenance, like anytime we do things like that, I just wanna make sure that we have a budget for long-term maintenance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think any structure that we build out there should be a steel helical pile structure, which significantly mitigates the maintenance issues. The debt it ups your initial investment for sure. I think it would be something that we need to pursue with grants, and understanding that once you install that structure, those steel helical piles are going to be good for 100, 200 years. And what will need to be replaced periodically every 10 years is no longer the entire structure with fresh disturbance to the wetland, but just the decking and on a periodic basis, the structural beams. So I think that will to some degree help mitigate that issue. Of course, you still have to plan for that. So that's the first portion of it, and then the second portion, I'll just brief, you don't have to vote on anything or decide anything, just so we get back on schedule here. Is the bigger question is what do you do about the 800-foot structure? And there's sort of two options. The option detailed in the report is that Timber and Stone think that there could be a workaround that involves less open wetland crossing and more use of stable ground. That means you'd have less linear feet of boardwalk, and that path would skirt the boundary line and cross a little farther over here, kind of wrapping around. Now, there are some unknowns about that, the primary one being where the true boundary is. So in order to know whether or not that reroute would be feasible, we'd first need to get a professional survey to identify where the boundary is. So we'd know, is the area they identified, is it on the town's land? And are there any issues with the proximity to the ownership, the private ownership on the west? The second thing is, how does it interact with the wetlands program? guaranteed that any of that stable ground will also be a wetland buffer. And so we have to investigate that. It may be that the best or most efficient opportunity is still to use the existing corridor. And simply move to replace that with a steel pile boardwalk. If it's important to maintain that circumferential continuity. That would be a very large expenditure, probably around $400,000. So again, it'd be something that would have to be pursued with serious grant funding. This site could be, this site was conserved, I believe, with Land and Water Conservation Fund money, so it could, or we could go to the federal program for money on that. So there are programs we could pursue that would help mitigate those costs, but it would be a big long-term capital expenditure. That would likely be true for rerouting it as well. As you see in the report, the cost for the reroute is estimated around $250,000, or if I'm remembering that right. So still significant, still something that would need to be a major grant project combined with capital matching funds.
Laura has.
Yeah, Laura and Eric, did I see your hand?
No, but I guess could offer a perspective, but go ahead. Laura.
Okay. This is like one of my favorite areas to.
Okay.
I was looking at you.
But
It's very cool there.
I just had a question, and that is, if we kept the same boardwalk, do we need a wetland permit if we make it wider so more users are able to use it instead of the width it is now, which is for people walking in that sense?
Yeah, there are
Yeah.
there are clear, ADA is usually beyond the permitted use where you don't need a permit. If you want to be like letter of the law, ADA compliant. However, the allowed use, I think, does allow you to go out to 5 feet, and I don't think the current boardwalk is 5 feet.
Wait, to do ADA, you need a permit. To not do ADA, you wouldn't.
No, like have to
I
go.
believe
beyond
so.
5 feet.
I think to get full ADA compliance, you need specifications that are wider or more involved in what's considered the allowed use.
Wow.
But I'm not 100% sure on that, because there are some potential workarounds where you can have a boardwalk that's narrower, that has bump outs every so often. So there are ways to do that. It would increase the project cost. What Josh was quoting in here was for just a standard boardwalk and not necessarily ADA compliant. I think
I just feel like everything should be ADA.
I think that's sort of, yeah, I think it's something you could look into, we could look into kind of what the guidelines and recommendations are there. I mean, this is a trail that is not necessarily what I would think of as the best candidate for an ADA compliant trail, given that you have to walk quite a ways through a lot of uneven ground and non-ADA compliant trail to get there. So typically when you see ADA compliant boardwalks, they're often immediately adjacent to a large parking area, stable ground, gravel trails that then connect. So if you think of, for example, like the ADA compliant boardwalk at Raven Ridge, where it comes off even from the gravel road, is essentially flat, graded all the way throughout its length. And it doesn't include the whole trail system there. So that's often what you see.
Okay, thanks.
I think Eric was next. Eric. Yeah, actually, let's put his hand up.
So I remember when that boardwalk was installed, it was right when I started the committee, and the town I got, I think it was a federal grant to install it. The committee at that point was, at least from what I remember, it's 18 years ago now, but like why? At some point, it's gonna come back on us. I don't know if I'm gonna pay for this boardwalk, but here we are, 18 years later. And I don't know, it just for the amount of use, I mean, I don't know that we have any kind of education on how much that trail is used.
I was gonna say,
What
this is
see
where trail counters.
Does not seem like, I mean, we can't do it now because it's closed, but,
Yeah.
It does not seem like the use of that thing, I think just justifies a $400,000, even if it is federal grants, $400,000 rebuild of that thing.
What's your sense of use?
Um. I think a lot of people do use it.
You do?
Yes, as
What's a
much
lot?
as, yeah, I think maybe
Well-
not as much as at the other end, but, I always
Or
see
relative
cars as
to
I,
non-paramount natural areas, maybe is like a good, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like as much as other natural areas in town.
Like 5 tree?
Yeah,
I'm gonna see
not
what
as
the
much,
Strava heat rate
not
is.
as much, but if, honestly. The boardwalk goes through a really interesting area.
Hmm.
And there aren't many boardwalks out there that do that, through, a marshy, boggy. Area with interesting plants and ferns and black ash trees, which probably won't be there for very much longer, but,
Yeah.
That was my only comment.
Yeah, that's pretty
I
unique.
agree, it's very cool there, it's just. Unless we can figure out a way to promote it, and I know that there's been access challenges from the. Oak Hill side
side,
as
yeah.
well.
It does, I mean, like,
Seems like a lot
This
of
is
money
like- it
for. Amount of use that's gotten.
I can't ever remember, but this is like pedestrian use recorded on Strava, which is, there's obviously way more people using it than
Subset
record.
people.
Yeah. But it does show up as much as the other side, like, it's not that much lighter.
Mm,
The boardwalk area,
Yeah.
so how many,
I
mean,
was,
it
I was
doesn't-
surprised at the amount of
Reimbursed.
engagement and comments I got when we had to
Yeah.
close it.
I do think the people who use it.
Well, that's a good
Very-
indicator.
Yeah,
Passionate about it, yeah.
yeah. Especially because it's from a different basically neighborhoods on the other
Yeah.
side.
Yes,
So you don't have to drive around South Road,
Mhm.
but anyway,
it is, and also people are using that class 4.
To get to it probably is what Laura's
Yeah.
saying, like people are getting
Yeah.
there from.
Yes,
Oak
that's
Hill.
what is
I don't know
happening.
how they can possibly use it,
Well-
it's all like wet beaver.
It's happening.
that's why.
It might be skiers.
The beers.
It might be
the-
ski-
No, I
beavers
put it
have-
to, I put
Oh,
it
you
to
did?
pedestrian.
Wow, okay.
The beavers have Strava. Um,
The beaver,
All right,
yes,
good,
the
so
beavers
just-
have Strava.
yeah, just looking at time, I want
let's-
to make sure that
yeah.
invasive species committee has a little bit of time to speak, so.
Yeah.
That's it for now, we can
Yeah.
we can revisit it.
Revisit it.
I will also say, if you go scroll all the way through the end, past the proposal and into the sort of, the bio of, timber and stone, and their different projects, I can also, like, they seem like a very, premium level of workmanship, like, the thing that caught my eye was, not just the diversity of locations where they go, but, like they did the, it's too early, the park, down in Shelburne, Philo.
Oh, yeah.
They did the Philo.
Fantastic trail.
Which are, yeah, really well built trail.
I mean, it's a heavy use trail. I actually prefer the old trail. I don't like the new trail because it's now just like a stepping stone thing. It's,
But they actually solved for the use.
yeah, they solved for the use problem, right? Which was, I think, clearly what the state was trying to do. So that was sort of my point, is that like, this is a very heavy use. My sense is that if we went with these guys, it would be for that heavy use application. And so that to me is also like why the trail counters would be very helpful in this idea, because this is never gonna get a Mount Philo level of pedestrian traffic.
I do think, like, I agree with that, and Eric, the point that Eric made was what I was trying to say before about like ongoing maintenance costs, right? Where it's like
Mhm.
these structures, when they're to do them well, cost a lot of money to maintain, and there's usually way more grant money available for building them than maintaining them.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right, so Dave, what's the next step on this? Is this just for awareness at this point?
Next step would be to get your recommendations on what you'd like to proceed. For example, if you'd like to pursue a more information about the alternative route. We could do a site visit, but we should definitely get the survey done, if that's the case. And talk about prioritizing the two potential projects out there and continue the conversation on, you know, how committed is the Conservation Commission to the circumferential trail, because that's, you know, that's kind of the crux of the problem. And if you don't want a trail that goes around Mud Pond, if you want discontinuous networks, or if you're comfortable with that, then there's an open question of why we're maintaining the west side of Mud Pond, why we're maintaining Schmoker, and whether resources could be reallocated or whether we want to continue to maintain this.
Does anyone have an idea for how to quickly resolve this to move forward with the invasive species management plan, or
I don't know about,
table it?
I don't know about quickly resolve it, I would propose we. Put this on another future agenda
Yeah.
for a little more
Yeah.
conversation, because one thought that I had was. If, depending on the outcome of the land survey. Could we? I like the idea of keeping it a circumference trail. Could we make most of that trail where the boardwalk is now, move it upland, up a hill, upland? But. Laura's point, could we consider putting a spur out into the Black Ash Park, so. People could see and experience that. Rather than having the 800-foot boardwalk go all the way through it like it does now.
Are those treated?
Not currently.
No. There are so many there. Yeah, there's small.
They're
A
small.
lot of them are small.
So, Dave, I think what we need is a wider discussion
Yeah.
about the future of that section. There's clearly interest in it. Thank you for providing the sort of survey here from the proposal. I think that's a lot of food for thought, so I think we should visit it.
Yeah, no, that's my recommendation.
Even though that portion is closed, are we as commissioners allowed to go? Takes, I don't know, take in what the,
I'm not gonna sanction anyone to go on the
Okay.
closed trail. I'm also not policing it. We do have permission from Hope Yandell, the adjacent landowner, for the public to use the vast trail, the private portion of the vast trail that crosses Hope's property.
okay,
That's not meant to be a permanent solution. It's a temporary, knowing that this is a long-term problem that will take multiple years to fix. And Isaac put signage out there, so when you go, you should see that, you know, there should be a, you know, entering private property, dogs need to be on leash, stay on the trail. Like some of our other trails across private land. So that's the public reroute, but you can go scope and take a look in person if you'd like, but
just have
I
it
don't-
on that side.
sanction anyone walking on the structure.
Okay, agreed. Thank you for the obligated, yes, thank you. Okay, we have, an applicant, for the Brown Isle subdivision, and we have an invasive species short-term action plan. Do we want to spend more than 10 minutes? Or well, I guess, it looks like 13 minutes on the invasive species plan. We're scheduled to talk about Brown Isle at 8:15.
I can just go through it quickly and we could, what do you think?
It's not that long.
Yeah, it's not that long.
Okay, we'll try for 10.
So,
Let's
thank
try for
you.
10.
Thanks for Lynn, and Reed and Eric for, putting so many edits in this, and the edits I put in, just as you might, notice, is that the state is starting to use the term introduced rather than invasive, and invasive is, as my son said to me, a value-driven term, Mom. And, that's probably good that you're not using it anymore.
Except we are, but we'll see if we can evolve.
So anyway, I'm just following state guidelines and also non-indigenous other than non-native. And Eric wrote a wonderful introduction to the invasive plan, if you were able to read that. And what this is meant to do is just have something that we can say, okay, we can do these, start to do these few things now. While we're writing a larger invasive species plan or contracting one. And one of the first things we need to know is what funding's available now and what can we do in the future. Not to be talked about now, but this is something that if we approve it, this is a point we'll be working on. Emergent species, part-time summer trail steward's already out there and he would
Section.
let us know about any emergent species that he notices. Knotweed, I know that the Vermont Master Naturalist Group was working on that. I don't know if they still are. Do you know if they still are?
They did a road survey for me documenting,
Okay,
and a couple of populations that they found on some of the major roads in the right of way.
okay,
Treating those is a whole nother question.
right.
You need to get a permit,
So they aren't addressing.
but it's something that we can, follow up on, with some future work.
I'll change that.
Can I do a quick timeout,
Yeah.
which is that I'm just noting that what we're sharing the screen on is different from, I think, what the link was, or at least the link that I opened last night.
Yes, this is,
Yeah.
Laura sent me an updated version, what you're seeing.
I sent everybody an updated version late,
The
so
link,
you might not have.
I saw that.
that's what you're editing in, right? Like I'm watching you edit.
Yes.
Yeah,
So that's different than what's on the screen.
yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Let's see.
Yeah, we call out a few different species where. That are maybe smaller infestations, more recent infestations, less established things.
Along the.
That we know about. There may be others that we will discover.
Okay, I'm just editing this a little, okay, there we go. So, yeah, next steps would be, figuring out how to contain the spread. Okay. Do this again. European alder, I know Dave, you had it as something that you were interested in, but right now it's just investigate best management practices for removal. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's interesting, the alder was the last thing the beavers ate on the pond. They ate the willows first and the dogwoods, and then they did eventually get to the
actually
European
did.
alder, but yeah, they took most of them down. Of course, they're all resprouting now.
I forgot they're European beavers.
Well, then let them do it, I guess.
Yeah, no, but they're still there.
Okay.
European alder's not effectively, impacted by repeat cutting. It's very good at resprouting, so
Yeah.
it most likely
Just
would
like
be
locust.
DEC approval for herbicide treatment if we want to go in there and remove it.
But
But there's also open questions about how far it spread down the Allen Brook. I'm pretty sure that it's not just at the confluence of those streams, but farther down the system as well.
Alrighty, okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to established species. I know that there's been a lot of work on poison parsnip, so we're addressing that. And continuing that.
Likewise.
Hey, by the way, on poison parsnip, this is not a species that like I was keenly aware of until we started talking about it in the context of like all of our trails and where it is. I would add some kind of like education of, much like photos of like what it is and to stay away.
Yeah, people don't know that.
People don't know
That's
to
like,
stay
yeah.
away from it, yeah.
It really stresses me out. Like when I showed Lynn and Reed a spot where it was like hanging over the bike path on the 4th of July in a place where like.
A biker would rub against it and.
Or like a child, like where like the bike path is on North Williston Road and there's like it crosses the little Allen Brook tributary and there's like this much sidewalk and like 3/4 of it is like a poison part, like.
That's been like that for years.
I know, and someone went and pulled it out, like I was gonna show them. And then I was like, I actually have a photo, but like I'm like really worried that someone's gonna get badly burned.
Yeah, because little girls pick, or little boys also pick that.
Totally.
I just know a little girl that picks flower stuff. Need to have Public. Education.
Yeah, we do
This is
say,
something that-
standard.
But we had some discussion about like, should we do some sort of outreach about like, take a walk down the bike path and you won't see any poison parsnip. And in that, you know, we could include education, as well as next year. We also talked about like spending some of the winter to create articles that then we could release in the summer, like this is blooming right now, don't touch it, if you wanna. You remove it, this is how you do it.
It feels like we're at this moment where it's like, all of a sudden, it's like really everywhere.
It is, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great, so I just added, we need to have public education about poison parsnip for recognition. And then under management also, coordinate with Public Works and Parks and Rec to implement best practices such as mowing schedules, signage, volunteer removal events, etc. And I don't know, whenever I see annually in a plan, I think, is this gonna? My worry is, the reason I want action items in this is because often these things do get shelved. I mean, we have too much to do. We have all these plans and we want to do a lot of things. We have action items in each of the plans that we approve, so I just worry about the word annually, that's all. But we should coordinate with Public Works. I can leave it in there. So buckthorn and honeysuckle, the only, of course, pervasive, invasive species, how's time going?
Fine.
Okay, the thing that the management for right now, if there's something we wanna do, is because you have the bench project. And because vast rooms where the bench is gonna go, we should coordinate with that vast, both for bench placement and for, possibly, eradicating a lot of the invasives that are at the top of Five Tree Hill for the view and for, grooming for snowmobiling. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
Good idea.
I also added, if a new parcel is acquired through the Environmental Reserve Fund, we can manage small populations, thanks Eric, of existing harmful plant species before they have a chance to spread.
Not possible.
Okay, yes, exactly, okay.
It's a good goal.
So we just, at our walk, we hardly saw any, so that's why I was thinking, let's just keep them out of there. If,
the best we can.
yeah,
Yeah.
if we're thinking about that parcel. So contract services for treatment. In addition to manual removal, which staff volunteers can do independently. And then there are a lot of invasive, introduced species out there
Good job.
that we need a longer term plan for. And then, of course, public education. I did develop materials at Green Up Day and handed them out. We could do this, we could do more and get them out there. Post on Front Porch Forum and also developing recommended guiding language on introduced plants for homeowners associations governing documents, which I've been working on. And I'm hopefully we can look at that this summer and fall
It's
because,
an intriguing idea. I like that.
yeah.
Especially given how many HOAs are now, so it's sort of like the default
Mhm.
to any subdivision.
If you want like a experimental HOA, I feel like
Yeah.
Bay Lane would be a good one.
Oh, great.
Well, like,
What are you signing in your neighborhood?
I think that they would be, I think if it would, I'm not on the HOA board, but I think they would be open to like reviewing things and being like, this would work for us, this wouldn't work for us, it would be
Oh,
too
that would be
costly.
great.
Like,
Or,
you know what I
you know,
mean, like a feedback.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that, or, yeah, it's Mr. Marcotte that asked for it.
Oh, cool.
So, long-term planning, interdepartmental approach, engaging other departments. Volunteer program. And we're participating in that with the town. As well as helping Williston residents manage their own yards or larger property, and Eric had a great idea of, if the town had a list of people who. Could be called up, like if somebody says, I wanna deal with these in my yard, I don't know what they are, they could go over and maybe help them out. So-
Yeah, call in a buddy.
Yeah.
Somebody to help. Yeah, phone a friend list, yeah.
That's. Yeah,
Alright.
anyway, so that's. The. Near term introduced terrestrial plants in the town of Williston management plan.
Okay.
Did we get language into it about it's how long it's intended to govern? I know I put a comment in that in. We know we want to do something more comprehensive, but we know that may be time and or financially expensive to do. For a full-fledged townwide plan, so I was imagining this is just in place until replaced by. Something more comprehensive, do we
Yeah.
have something in there?
That there isn't, except there are some dates, let's do this in 2026, like the 5 Tree Hill.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Or ongoing annually.
I would put some kind of sentence into the opening at the top that says this plan is intended to guide. Management until a more comprehensive plan and replace it.
It does say, this is Eric's words, this plan will remain in effect until replaced by a more
go.
comprehensive plan.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Eric.
Sure thing.
That's all I wanted, just because we don't know if it could be 1 year, it could be 2 years, we just don't know how long it might
Right.
take us to get around to something more comprehensive.
Almost like you write.
Probably longer.
For years. Yeah, I mean, it takes.
Agreements, arrangements, and so. Well, I'm just living.
I'm really glad that Eric has
The words
editing.
just come out, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I just keep seeing Eric's handiwork as we
Alright,
go along.
I have one more comment.
yeah, and then we
Yeah.
just move on.
Yeah, my last comment was just that, this isn't a perfect plan, but that's the whole point of kind of an interim, short-term plan is to have something, and. I think the most important thing about this plan is it gives us a direction on how to approach different categories. And it gives David direction so that when we go through the budgeting season,
Mhm.
we know what our intended direction is, and we can think about how much. Contracted work versus volunteer work we think is required to make solid progress. And also supports Dave in communicating with other departments to begin those conversations about like who should be involved in a more comprehensive plan. So we can collaborate. So those, to me, those are the important things, even though they're not necessarily the main point of the plan. The budgeting and communicating with other departments to collaborate is really important.
Great, and where does this live? Like website? We'll put it on the website.
Where will it live?
Yeah, where will it?
Website.
Yes, saw
I
that.
think we
Thank
should
you.
put it on, I think we should put it on the Conservation Commission, website. Pending approval, obviously, in this meeting, but I think I would like to have it sort of dated and, sort of, recognized as being approved on this date. And then posted in a public site so that it sort of serves that larger purpose that Reed is talking about.
Okay, I will put approved if we approve it today.
We need to
Do
vote.
we have a motion?
Yeah, we'll need a motion, to approve and post, as we've been sort of editing in real time.
Do we,
If we want to, yeah.
Well, I
Make
just-
some changes, I feel like this introduced. Term is very, I mean, like watermelon is, and marigolds are also introduced
an apples?
plants and that, like
I
so
know.
many, almost everything else. It does seem like, then if we're gonna use that terminology instead of invasive, then we need to put some qualifiers. On it or some descriptors like introduced, but taking over entire, stream sides, like not weed or.
Well,
I think,
Introduced but causes harm, human health,
Noxious.
harm to human health in the case of poison parsnip.
yeah, I think that. It's kind of throughout, I made sure, plant species that pose a threat to ecosystem health on town owned parcels. And also, the problem with the poison parsnip, which I should actually put the species name in here too.
I hear what you're saying though, like, and I think it could just be like a footnote. Right, like an asterisk with a
Yeah,
footnote,
could
that's
be.
like, we
do
say,
that.
we understand that there are many
Mm,
introduced species on the landscape that we accept. And then there are many that pose. Like a threat or risk or like whatever.
Yeah, I feel like we need to say why.
So I'm gonna
Not
make
actually
a recommendation just in the interest of time, which is that.
Yeah.
Because there've been a lot of live edits in recent adjustments, 2 weeks isn't gonna make a whole lot of difference, so
Yeah.
my recommendation is post the edited version. For another round and you can talk about it, revisit.
Perfect. Let's do it. And then we can get back on
Yeah,
track.
thanks for
Just,
the yes.
yep, August, thanks, Laura. Thank you, Laura. This is looking great. We'll be happy to have this finalized in the next meeting.
Thank you.
And I just added a little, I don't know, just a definition of what an introduced species might mean in this context.
Okay, great, thanks.
I mean, and also let's not get too far afield of, invasive species management plans are sort of like an accepted thing. It's like, we asked, for example, what is it? CV Chittenden Solid Waste District, there it is, CSWD thing. We asked them to have an invasive species management plan.
I think the point, yes,
Yeah.
and also the language is changing.
It is.
And it's changing like at the professional level, and I think in a couple of years, we'll be asking for something differently.
Mhm.
Okay, so with that, we will move to the next agenda item, which is an application. I believe this is DP 2608. This has moved from. What is it? The initial application? Pre-app to discretionary. And so this is now pending discretionary approval at the DRB. We have a very good and comprehensive staff report that I will ask Dave to walk us through. Just given the time, we might want to start with grounding in what has changed from pre-app to discretionary in the approval, because it's pretty notable and significant for our review of the project. Which I know the staff report covers in great detail. Okay, great. Oh, and we should add, we are joined by the applicants as well. Good morning. Good morning. Do you want to introduce yourselves again? Engineer.
Rick Brownell, the applicant.
Thank you.
Great feature.
Oh, thank you. Lifelong geeky fan.
All right, yeah, welcome Doug and Rick. So, I'll just share with you the updated plan, and there's been a few changes to that plan since the conservation saw it at pre-app. So, the most notable thing is that the originally proposed 2 parcels are now merged into 1 parcel. That was due to primarily due to the issues in resolving the public works standards with regards to extending that road and what it would cost. Given that extended road would need to have been paved and up to paved road standards. So that's now 1 lot, which would be accessed from the stub of the end of the existing Lincoln Road to a half-acre home site with the septic field up here adjacent to the road. Second change is that this plan now shows the location that would be reserved for a replacement wastewater system for lot 2, that's the existing home and ADU. Currently, they're served by an off-site septic system where a line was run to this neighboring parcel, was established however many years ago, and at some point that will need to be replaced. So this is establishing this alternative site for where the replacement wastewater system would go on the property, and then where the access path would be for accessing, creating, and maintaining that wastewater system. The third change is a little bit of just technicalities. In reviewing the DP proposal, Emily caught a particular detail, which is that technically, although these 2 parcels are under the same ownership, And the bylaw views them as one for the purpose of development. The top part of the site is technically a second parcel, this top 6.8 acres. And that creation of that parcel was from a subdivision. If you follow my cursor, that involved this chunk of land here. Which we had noted previously, but what wasn't noted previously is that this 6.8 acres or so was designated as 75% open space from that subdivision.
So I'm sorry, so this parcel is the 75%?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the 75%, part of the 75% for these two.
But it's owned, but it's owned by the Brownell.
Yep.
family?
Yeah.
Tax map shows it all as one.
Yeah, the tax map shows it all as one, which is how the same as how the bylaw would treat two adjacent parcels under one ownership. So the technicality difference is that when looking at this subdivision and applying what 75% open space is, that calculation should just be for the lower portion of the parcel. And so the change, it was a shrinking of lot number 2. And then that lot will be served by an access easement over the existing driveway. And then this portion of the property as well is included in the open space now.
Okay, got it.
All right, so those are the 3 main changes. And I will now switch over to the staff report. And just give me a moment, make sure. Let me close this. Let me close this. Let me close
Fresh space.
Close Zoom. I just want to make sure that the screen sharing is what I'm intending to share, so I'm going to reset that. Okay, so you'll recognize a lot familiar diagrams and phrases from the staff report here. I updated it with regards to my review of those changes and any previous items known, as well as the results of the habitat disturbance assessment that was conducted in between and other natural resource assessments that were conducted in between pre-app and discretionary permit. So many of these areas are no discussion is required. We know that the question of primitive trails and the desired trails map was kind of resolved last time with no comment from the Conservation Commission. In terms of significant wildlife habitat area, a habitat disturbance assessment report was completed by VHB and presented to the Conservation Commission along with applicant Rick Brownell. So the commission should, we'll take a look at the end just with regards to the VHB recommendations from the report. If you believe anything is actionable or still applicable to these submitted plans from that report that isn't already addressed. In terms of unique natural communities, both the work that was done by Bowman and other work that was done by VHB concurred that the unique character of Brownell Mountain, any features that would be associated with that mapped site are really contained within the upper portion of the parcel, and primarily that area that's already conserved, the upper 7 acres. So there's no issues that are presented in terms of development proposal with regards to the designation of unique natural community. In terms of uncommon, rare, threatened, and endangered species, the primary note on this site was the existence of historical occurrences on the Agency of Natural Resources map in terms of orchid species that were historically found on site. There was communication with the state botanist, and one of those, the state botanist was not concerned about, did not feel like that historical record was likely to be found, and Bowman had pointed out that there were some questions about that record, including an elevation stamp that was far above what the actual elevation is in Williston. It said the plants were collected at a much higher elevation. So there were some questions there, but Grace did request an in-season survey for Hooker's orchid, which is a rare orchid. So that was completed on May 29th by VHB. And no orchids were found, so that area of the survey will be removed from the element occurrence in the ANR system. Then other notes during the habitat disturbance assessment, there were 2 butternut trees that were located on site, and that was discussed recently. When the orchid survey was conducted, Will Durkin of VHB went out and looked at those trees with Rick, the applicant. They noted that the canopies were not 100% on those trees, which is common with butternut. Many butternut are afflicted by butternut canker. Given that, the state botanist was not too concerned, or had no additional concern. So with the current proposal, this easternmost butternut, which had about a 70% canopy, would be removed. There were no concerns about that. The westernmost butternut is not impacted by the proposal. Then one additional note, when Will conducted the orchid survey, he also noted that there was a rare sedge on site that would have been impacted by the previous proposal to put a septic site back here. That concern was mitigated when that site was no longer proposed to be used.
Everyone should Google image Hooker's orchid.
They're very cool.
It's so cool, and I'm bummed that it wasn't there. It
I'm
looks
sure,
like little dragons.
I'm sure the applicant.
Okay, so scenic view sheds, this is another one that at pre-app, the WCC had no comment. There's no effective impact on view sheds. Watershed health, an erosion prevention and sediment control plan was submitted with the discretionary permit application. There were no wetland concerns. Here I just explained that technicality with removing the 6.84 acres from the calculation and how that was resolved. And noting that at pre-app, the WCC determined that the lot configuration successfully minimized consumption of lands that should be protected. So in terms of the home site, the pre-app plan did not have a half-acre clearing area indicated. Note the bylaw requires development sites in the ARZD to have a half-acre clearing area, which is the limit of disturbance, with the exception being driveways and wastewater infrastructure, which of course can be cleared outside of that. So this current proposal has an example half-acre clearing limit here. It shows a little bit of a funky configuration, which I think, Doug, maybe you can clarify. It looks like that configuration was done to leave the wastewater
Yeah,
system.
basically just excluded, the areas around the mound system, the area around, the driveway. And the septic and such, and created the half an acre outside of those areas that are allowed to be cleared. So yeah, it's a little odd shaped, but it makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, usually it's just a rectangle on site, but I don't think it's, it has to be in a particular way. The only thing I noticed is that it comes into the buffer here, so did you feel like that was necessary? I'm not sure.
I think that could be adjusted.
Okay.
I think it was driven by the need to likely put a little bit of fill on the downhill side of the driveway. Because we're kind of traversing a slope right there, but it goes beyond what I showed as a, toe slope for the driveway, so that could be pulled back.
Okay,
This isn't proposed to be an exact design of the site, just kind of pictorially shows that this works, meets all the requirements of the town. So anyway,
okay,
to answer your question, yeah, that building envelope can be pulled out of the buffer. That was just an oversight on my part.
okay, yeah, that might just be a final plans comment, just to put that at the buffer.
Dave, I have a question on clearing. If they need to create an access point for the lot 2 wastewater system, why does that not count as the clearing? I mean, they'll need to clear that, no?
Not necessarily, clear it. It is right now. I mean, this was probably a forest road or a logging road at one point. So that, which is part of the reason why it's currently used as a wildlife, corridor, or this area, this flatter area. Doug, did you get a sense that a lot of trees would need to come out to?
No, you're right. It's been cut before, and that is an old logging road, so be minimal.
Yeah, so I don't think it would necessarily be clearing. Obviously, this would be clearing up here to create, you clear and maintain the area where a septic mound will be. But the bylaw doesn't include that in the home lot. Just because there's only so much you can do with wastewater in a site.
Go certain places.
I mean, that was sort of an afterthought that, now would be the time if we're going into the state to get a wastewater permit for this new lot. Rick and Sue's wastewater system is.
Yep.
30+ years old,
50 years old.
whatever,
yes.
that ultimately it's going to fail, so as long as we're getting a state permit for wastewater for the new lot, let's go in and get the design. Approved for their house, so that if tomorrow they had an issue, they could go out and build it.
There's
Go through the,
at some point, the existing wastewater system will fail, and so we have to have a replacement.
right, so if that were the case, that could have been done, 2 years from now when it fails, and, wouldn't be going through this process, it would just be, how do we find a suitable, wastewater system for their lot, so it just encourage this now. Yeah, it seemed like now would be the time to do it.
Put it out there.
And be done with it, right, garden project,
Hmm.
even though it's kind of a side project, if you will.
So the recommendation is to adjust the clearing to be within the buffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you could, yeah, obviously that takes a little out of that envelope. It can be a half acre, so you could bump it up a little bit or whatever, bump it out a little bit. All right, so
Clear less, it's okay to clear
right,
less.
so
Yeah, I was gonna say, clear less.
Well, I assume when somebody comes in to get an administrative permit, right, they put together their own sketch of what's happening.
Yeah.
For you guys,
Look
for
at.
staff to look at, yeah.
Mhm.
Here we not look like what we're.
that's a good question. I know on some. Certainly in past projects, the designated home site on final plans is the designated home site. That'd be something I'd want to check with Matt or Emily, who has a little more experience on administering this particular bylaw. Is that flexible? Like, do you just have to show that the site can be in compliance, or is that kind of locked in? I'll make a note of that, but either way, I don't think it is a long-term issue.
Okay, so we're on to I think we reviewed the findings, and we're jumping to the highlighted recommendations. I think we took the first one.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at the HDA real quick. But yeah, I put a couple things in here. So first, I retained from the pre-app, I didn't retain the recommendations to get an HDA, so it's standard, it's been done. Typically, we retain, even though these were addressed by the discretionary permit, we typically retain those in the recommendations, so that there's a record of kind of those recommendations were made and accommodated. the erosion control plan, marking the town line on the site plans and.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so that I did propose adding this. The pre-app recommendation was the site plan must show a defined building envelope of a half acre or less. And then I just added the envelope must not impact the required 50-foot natural vegetation buffer along the frontage.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's what we just agreed to. And then or that the applicant said is reasonable.
Doable.
yeah,
Yeah.
Hmm.
The first one, the new recommendation.
yeah, okay, so we'll take a look at the HG in a second. This is the only one I pulled out that on my read through, I thought is kind of a key item for discussion, just potentially actionable or not. So the HCA made the recommendation that the lot line on the westernmost side be adjusted to exclude that preferred wildlife corridor, which is most of the area where that easement to the septic replacement site was shown. At the time, that was where a mound system was proposed right on site in the middle of that corridor, which is where that recommendation, part of what the proposal for that recommendation came from. So the WCC should discuss, are you kind of satisfied that, with the removal of that wastewater site, there's not going to be an open clearing there, there's not going to be long-term impact, except that open corridor forest road will be cleared to remain open periodically. Or rather, not necessarily cleared, but trees won't be growing in on it.
Maintained.
Yeah, it'll be maintained to be an open corridor. So are you satisfied, or does the WCC feel like they want to see a change as recommended by the HDA?
And you said you wanted to show us some of the HTA itself, or just?
Yeah, well, just to point out the other recommendations that were made and whether they're applicable. But this is the one that I pulled out as potentially applicable or not, for your discretion.
So I guess you did express like a question that's related to this, right? Like about,
Yeah, I mean, that was,
that's like the heart of what you were asking.
yeah.
Or
Well,
my,
is it clearing? It sounds like no, it's basically like maintaining the current status quo. And, that makes sense to me. So. Does anyone want to talk further on that topic?
I guess what
where-
would we do? We would ask. I guess. We would ask for it to be adjusted.
I'm trying to compare the HTA's travel corridor
Right.
with the new site plan to see where they align. It looks like it's basically up
Yeah,
that logging road that's
right.
gonna be used for access. So. I mean, from an applicant perspective, Rick, what do you like? Is there any harm in reducing the lot so that it stops before the current logging road, or what are your thoughts on it?
Well, in as much as we are eliminating the idea that a septic system would be placed in the natural corridor there. And that the plan contemplates that all of this will remain as undeveloped open space except for the half acre of building lot. It should be no real disturbance to the existing area whatsoever, so I did not see it's necessary to shrink our
Okay.
proposed subdivision. We've already shrunk it quite a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I think just to keep the acreage the way it is, more for marketability than anything else, they've already
Yeah.
taken a substantial hit losing one lot. We
Yeah.
never thought the town the public works would be so
Yeah,
be tough on the road issues, so.
there's enough space for a second lot, but access is not
Yeah.
practical, so it will have to remain undeveloped.
So the question is really like just that little sliver, right?
the very west part of
Yeah.
lot 2. Yeah, right,
Yeah.
just like that yellow line and
Yeah.
because according to the HDA, that's where wildlife are traveling is up and down, basically that dotted logging road.
Low slope.
Yeah, low slope area.
Mm.
Yeah,
So could you just switch the lot size so there's more going north? If you wanted to cut, if you wanted the property boundary to be at the logging road and then,
So that it was like this.
yeah.
I mean, the logging road is on a nice little plateau that people, you know, the new homeowners could utilize for walking and such, so.
It's a national corridor.
You know, the wildlife won't see that property line, they won't know where that line is, or.
yeah, the thought process from Conservation Commission standpoint is whoever eventually builds a home and lives there, people feel differently about what's okay to do on their land versus outside of their lot. And so sometimes people do silly things, right? They go down like, oh, well, we want to create a little glamping site down here, and then they end up clearing trees and stuff, and they don't realize that that area was intentionally being left undisturbed. And so sometimes if you can have the lot lines kind of naturally show somebody, hey, like, don't do anything beyond this point, it can be helpful. And I think what
Yeah, that's what I
Lynn
was
is
thinking.
saying, like, what if you kept the same acreage but just stopped at the logging road?
Is there,
It would be clearer demarcation for them of like, this road is the end of our lot. And then beyond that, they wouldn't disturb.
I mean, wouldn't it also be complicated to maintain that access if it's, I mean, presumably you'd have an easement or something, but like.
The lot line could be like this side so that the road is like incorporated
Right,
and
that's
then
what I
it can
mean.
do it. Like it doesn't, I don't think it has to stop here. We're talking about this, right?
Right, that's what I mean.
Just
So it
this.
includes-
No, I think.
No, you're talking about the area where this.
Yeah, it's that whole flat zone right there.
It's the topography that makes it attractive for
Mhm.
movement.
So including the road.
Including.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the road, I think, is likely where most animals are moving, just because it's already more cleared than what's on either side.
But what's the difference? I mean, if the road is included, what's the difference? It's gonna remain open.
Yeah, I
It's
think
already
agree with
open
that.
and it's just gonna remain open and then when it's time for the septic to be in, it's gonna. Like, that to me is just. It's already kind of a road, so
Yeah.
it's just the part that's west of the road. It seems like it would be more beneficial to wildlife than the area north of the house.
I'm with you, yeah.
So conservation aspects aside, wouldn't it be easier logistically to not have that access road crossing two different ownership parcels?
The shape of the land makes it such that there's no real other way to access it except along with this,
Right, I don't mean, sorry, I don't mean
It means
moving the road, I just mean.
Drawing the yellow line to like something like this that doesn't include the access.
Yeah,
That's the question.
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe it's not that big a deal, it just seems like most of it on paper.
I mean, it's just that's what you just drew on there is, you know, steep slopes, not really useful for anything as opposed to a more terraced area, where the yellow line shows up now.
I think that's like our concern, right, is that right now that is usable, and so people in the future might be likely to use it.
You know, trying to keep people out of those
Yeah.
travel corridors.
it's
Yeah.
still quite narrow, you couldn't.
Mhm.
It goes down steeply to this ledge area, then drops off still further. The actual flat area is relatively small, I'm not sure what kind of, development a future homeowner might wanna put on.
They would also be barred from doing extensive, you know, any clearing really, because it's the half acre clearing allowance has already been.
Since we keep a right of way across that parcel to, access our leach field, that also would be a barrier to a homeowner, putting some kind of improvement there.
But they theoretically have to get a permit from the town to put a structure up, so
Oh,
all these issues would come forward to say that's.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
So I'll just point out I think the only issue with bumping this up is that the discussion about steep slopes. This is,
there's,
at least this area right here, from my recollection, we could look at it, has to be an open space.
because of how steep it is.
It's so steep, yeah, it's.
Okay, for that reason, I'm okay leaving it as is, but I just want to be clear that like these are the things we think about, because I'm not thinking about an applicant coming in later and wanting to put an improvement there. I'm thinking about somebody who's not coming and asking, because we recently have had, for instance, a parcel get cut to turn into agricultural land that wasn't allowed to be cut. You can't put the trees back once it's cut. So we're thinking more about like how to just
Or,
socially engineer it so people don't make those mistakes.
or, right, like people doing it completely unintentionally, like the back of my yard, the fence. Like the homeowner before us, just when they had the fence installed, they went like way past the boundary line and so like our yard is actually in someone else's property.
Yeah, just accidents happen.
Yeah.
It happened.
So because of the slopes thing, I'm okay with the lot lines as
Yeah.
driven personally, but
Good distinction.
I'm glad we discussed it.
Agreed. Is there anything more to discuss on new recommendation number 1? I'm satisfied.
So David might want to mention, VHB did suggest that the driveway come in where we're showing it now.
Yeah.
Thinking that the old road was, again, maybe a wildlife corridor, but if we could minimize impacts to that, so we've accommodated their recommendation in that regard.
So the whole thing is now the existing driveway. Is that right?
Comes off at sort of the yoke where the town plow
Yeah.
acts around, yeah.
Hmm.
And it kind of follows the contours, so we're not going up a steeper
I
side.
see.
It makes, topographically makes sense.
That was the original design.
Oh, yeah.
Both driveways coming off the class 4 road.
But that was not allowed, so.
But now the extension has been,
The lot,
Right.
the first lot where the driveways moved north.
Can we see that draft, or did you want to go to the recommendations at the bottom here?
I was gonna go to the potential project recommendations.
okay, go ahead.
So, yeah, project recommendations from the HTA, just to kind of clarify and revisit, so they recommended adjusting that lot line, that's what was under discussion here. They also recommended, as Doug pointed out, redesigning driveway access. To avoid using the class 4 road. So that's kind of a moot or mitigated point with regards to the current proposal. And then there's a question of, there was a recommendation with regards to site clearing. To avoid cutting between mid-April and mid-October, which is what you typically. That's typically the window in which bats are active. The reason I didn't put that in is because operationally, I don't think that's it's sort of an operational recommendation, not something that the approval in this case can necessarily weigh in on. So
I
it's
feel like those are not like mid-April's mud anyway.
so it's a nice thing to be aware of, but I don't think the bylaw has any teeth with regards to putting that in as a recommendation. And then they mentioned that they had heard that at the time that they were conducting this, they heard that you may end up reducing to one lot, and they supported that. Okay, so that was the HTA. And then I'll just bring it back so you can finish the conversation and let me know how you'd like to proceed on a recommendation or not.
Okay, any additional comments? Go
I
ahead.
think I'm okay not requesting the lot line adjustment.
That's where I am. I'm okay
Yes.
striking the new number 1.
Thank you.
Len, how do you feel about it though?
Yeah. I think it's reasonable if we can't move it northward.
Okay,
And think about
Can
the slopes
show-
before David brought it up.
I can bring up the pre-application. Report. Let me see.
Way back.
Right, did I get it? Yeah.
wow,
That is amazing.
nice job, Dave. Although I'm sure you were
It's
there,
almost like I
Very
did this
good.
recently.
it's almost like you had been there this week or something.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is the steep slopes
Yeah.
part.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked about how, you know, these little triangles were, you know, not reasonable
Not
to
substantial.
include. But I think you couldn't reasonably, bump this up into this area. Cause that red has to be excluded.
Okay, so with that clarification, I think we're comfortable with removing the recommendation number one. Okay. Okay, so that'll be noted in the edit, final edit, and then, we talked about the 50-foot buffer being adjusted, and the applicant is agreeable to that without further discussion, so I think we are set and we can have a motion to approve as discussed and amended.
Yeah, I'll move approval of the recommendations, striking the new number one and keeping the amended number one.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor for approval as noted?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Carries.
Thank you for coming back.
Thank you for coming back.
Good luck.
Okay.
Onward.
On to your next step.
Yeah.
All right, so we usually close now with 5 minutes about what do we want to set? What are our priorities for the? Looks like, what is it, August 5th today? So the 19th is our next meeting, and then we'll have a September 2nd meeting. So we already talked about the invasive species short-term management plan being on the agenda, so we'll finalize and approve that on the 19th. Do we?
BMN is also scheduled for the.
Vermont Metro Naturalist, you also flagged CV Earth project. I think that's more of an update.
Well, I just was looking at like, what are the things,
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Rick.
thank you, that were on our list, and I guess like I have a question about that one that I sent in our
Sure.
email, which is like, can we get some guidance maybe on like what is in our purview to comment on in other towns? Like, I think in my head, I'm like, well, we should do landscape level conservation planning. Like, we should be like, oh, Richmond, do you want to talk about like collaboratively thinking about protecting these potentially flood, I'm making things up, like.
Yeah. We're not gonna have that discussion in the last
No,
3 minutes.
I'm
but-
wondering like for a next, like for a future meeting.
Yeah.
And I tried to look it up and I don't think we have. I don't think we have guidance, like, I don't think it's.
The one thing I will say is that this will clearly not be within the purview of the Williston charter, that this would just, that.
That's my question.
But it's their school district, so it
I
doesn't,
don't know if that's relevant, but that's the
I
discussion.
think that's my question.
that was not relevant. We're the biggest under the school district and. So it's not really controlled by Heinsberg either, like the school district controls the
Yeah.
campus.
Tell you what, let's put it on the agenda and then it will be noted, and if any participants want to. Or any members of the public, then we can have that discussion in that context of having it be on the agenda. And I think that is the discussion that we want to have. We don't have a draft resolution to talk about, we just want to sort of talk about our role and get a
Right, that's what I would.
factual update.
I wanna know like what is appropriate for us to. When we could have it in the context of like, what other, like, cross-border things is it, like, we would weigh in on runoff, right? Would we? I don't know, like,
In Heinsberg,
well, like, to like something like Lake Iroquois,
I'm gonna support our chair here. Let's table that till, future agenda item. With them.
So let's put it on the agenda, it'll be noticed, and then we can invite the Heinsberg volunteer who is very interested in this to potentially join, and invasive management plan, and what was the other?
Vermont Master Naturalist.
Vermont Metro, thank you. do we have any
We
applications?
do, yeah, there's two
Okay.
applications, one is probably very short, one is probably a little longer, I think we could. Do them in 45 minutes to an hour collectively,
Okay, have we seen them before, or are
Yeah.
they pre-apps?
yeah, they're new.
They're pre-apps.
One is one is a single round, no pre-app.
Okay.
One is a pre-app,
Okay,
um,
okay, so that'll be a full agenda.
yeah, that'll probably be full agenda.
We all,
The
Go ahead, Reed.
18th of August is the select board meeting that potentially will include the new revised volunteer policy, so just to put on people's radar, it's the day before our next meeting.
Okay.
So we'll find out what happens with that. Timing, Aaron was not sure whether it would make it onto that agenda or not, but that was the target. And then, Dave, real quick, is there an update on the knotweed proposed project or knotweed removal by Talcott Road? Do we, you know, that we were in discussion with a potential provider? Do we have?
No, there's not that, not
Okay.
update.
okay, I also wanna. Get some kind of resolution soon as to what we're doing with Markov. And if we need to go back into executive session to discuss that, but I'd love to know what the status is and if we're.
Yep.
Great.
Um,
It doesn't have to be for the next meeting, but just. sort of-
yeah, the status is I'm preparing notes for the select board to brief them on the project. And what the potential directions are in terms of negotiation with the landowner, what steps will be needed to proceed. And trying to get all that information in front of them to get kind of just the basic approval to move forward, continue spending money and staff time on the project.
Okay,
So,
like finding matching grants and that kind of stuff?
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, yeah, so that's the update there, and
Maybe you can provide an update on what you've given to the select board. In your next planner's update. Then if it's done by then.
yeah, we'll coordinate on that,
Yeah.
just as
Yeah.
I
And we can also
continue
coordinate,
to work on it.
great, we can also coordinate on the scope of the discussion for the turf project.
Yeah.
And sort of draw a boundary around what it is that we're gonna actually
Okay.
discuss.
I just wanna hear what is our, like, the thing I wanna talk about is like, what's our purview? Like, what's
Yeah.
appropriate for us to do?
You wanna have a charter-based discussion within the context of.
The thing I don't wanna do is like provide a comment and then have a neighboring town be like, why did you do that? Why did you
I
talk
also
about
don't
our
care.
terms?
I mean, if we agree as a committee that we wanna do it, then
I think
If
that's.
if there's nothing to say we shouldn't do it, and I mean, separate aside from what we think as a committee,
Yeah,
then why not do it? Charlotte has done it. They sent a letter to the school board. I mean, that's what's been done to this point, is the letter's been sent to the school board. Now I think that's like. That's sort of,
Shipping.
that ship has sailed, but there might be other points, other times when a letter from us. Could
So
be
let's-
informative to the
let's-
process.
Open up our. Website with our charters and our sort of scopes of work and
Decide together.
decide collectively as to how we wanna proceed.
and it could be like a bigger discussion of like, sometimes it makes like. Sometimes you can't manage within the boundary of your town, like maybe runoff is a bad example, but like. Right, and like, how do we wanna do that, and that's
Okay,
when that happens.
sounds good. And then I would just ask that we go back to an active ERF strategy discussion at some point in September. So we'll have to fly out.
Right,
Because that's gonna be,
So much going on.
we're gonna have our memo to the town where we know it. Budget.
Anybody wanna discuss me in weekly?
Okay, we're adjourned.
on that note,
Nope.
have you started your new job yet?
We got the new computer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Both have.
Yeah, I started Monday.
All the time. You're having.
Monday this week?
Procedure, you have.
Nice.
this
I took a week
Invasive cancer, this is.
I did as
invasive-
well.
strep-
Great.
Invasive,
Yes.
strep. So it's like, and it's
Yeah.
an infection or.
Flexibility.
I was
That's some dating, something.
Well, also like, in this moment, it feels
Plus it
like
has a-
moving
So we,
to
what?
an organization that functions.
It's like
a
some
little
places
less
shouldn't be.
federal,
Bacteria, some places
whatever
shouldn't be, these cells
seems
are some places it shouldn't be, or
nice.
you're having, you know.
Yeah.
Can I tell you that my wife works on agricultural grants?
You know, in your
And so it's like, are you still with us? She's dealing with that
This is
constant.
like
Constant.
like
And
why?
It's
How is
like
this different?
the federal guidelines either changing and then the grant manager like not being informed or like not giving details, and it's just like.
I feel like my.
We're done recording, right, Dave?
Yeah.
We are still recording.
Because you got fined.
Oh, but we adjourned.